Hey Boulder, Colorado. I am coming to you from Kunming in Yunnan province in southwest China, where I have lived for most of the last 26 years. I have had this cafe, Salvador's Coffee House, here on Wenlinjie in the heart of Kunming since 2003. And today I am feeling very privileged to talk to the Boulder Bookstore as the Bookend Cafe when I was a college student in Boulder, Colorado. The Bookend Cafe was my home. I would say an inspiration for a lot of what we've done here for the last 21 years. I'm going to show you a little bit of Wenlinjie and Wenhuaxiang as we go inside so I can complete this interview about my new book, The Galaxy's Last Ride, Shifting Gears in Rural China. I've been working on this book for about 5 years. And I'll show you a copy here as I settle down in our cafe, Galaxy's Last Ride. We started our coffee houses originally in a smaller town called Dali in 2003. 1 year later, we moved here to Kunming. In those days, we started with just a few employees, my business partner Chris Ariel and I. And we were keeping things really simple back then. He and I did a lot of the cooking, a lot of the cleaning. We hired a few people to help us out. Those people happened to come from villages around Yunnan. For most of them, they were young women who were for the first time leaving their villages behind to come find work in the city to make money for their families. Over time, our business grew. I'm going to fast forward now to where we have 4 restaurants in Kunming, based around the idea of a coffee house. And really, again, going back to the Boulder Bookstore and the Bookend Cafe, so much of that inspiration came from those days. But now we have 75 employees. And of those 75 employees, most of them are coming from countryside areas, rural areas, where they were young women who were coming from countryside areas. They were in charge of their households, even from the ages of 3 and 4. They would start to have these responsibilities around the house, learning to cook, take care of the farmlands. And for a lot of our staff, the first time they ever left the countryside was when maybe their friends who were already working for us or their sisters invited them to come join our business here. And now, of our 75 staff, we have 14 pairs of sisters working together. We have 8 pairs of mothers and daughters working together. And being open now for 21 years, we have put a lot of time and effort into finding ways to make it so this is a place that they can call home. They'll have more opportunities in the future. It's not a work that they're sort of stuck in, but that they have more opportunities to work towards something more in the future. And so that's a big inspiration for why I wrote this book. I wanted to give them a voice to talk about how change has swept through this country so dramatically over the last 20, 30 years. My first book, Great Leaps, Finding Home in a Changing China, I was really talking about this migration from the rural countryside to the cities and how cities were growing and modernizing basically because of this incredible labor surge to help move this country forward. But for the last 10 years, the countryside areas that I fell in love with, places where a lot of our staff when they were young had no electricity, where, getting to the hospital was a multi-day journey, and they were mostly a self-sufficient society, growing their own food. A lot of them had never been more than half an hour walk from their village. And so for the first time, they moved to the city to work with us. And I wanted to give them a voice in this book while also describing this trip I took in 2020, right at the beginning of COVID, where it felt like we were going to lose our businesses, and where I just lost a close friend. And what often happens to me when I'm starting to feel the pressures of life is I would get on my motorcycle and ride out into the countryside. And so in 2020, I took this 2,500 kilometer journey from starting in a town called Dali and finishing up in the north in Gansu province, where in 1998 that was my first experience with rural China, a place I fell in love with, and so I wanted to connect these two dots on a map. Really I was kind of running away from something. I had no plans of writing another book, but as I started out on this adventure and going to some of these rural areas I had passed through in previous motorcycle trips, I was really noticing the impact of change, and a lot of the village areas have been completely rebuilt and knocked down, and a lot of this made me really sad, and I saw it as sort of this treasure that had been lost to the world. But it's sort of this conflict of wanting to hold on to the past and this progress to the future, and so really incorporating the voices of our staff and some other people from around China, talking about how change from the outside perspective can look so harsh and so cookie cutter. I mean, even these homes, these beautiful wooden and mud brick homes, have been knocked down and replaced with concrete blocks, which I find really unfortunate. But at the same time, these are now families who for generations have had to only rely on themselves and no bridge to the outside world. But we're now given brand new homes with hot water, and it's something they never had, hot showers back then. Electricity, obviously, internet access, and now they've been sort of incorporated into this greater world where people growing up out there feel like they finally have some opportunity. So I was on this motorcycle trip observing all these changes, and I started coming up with this book idea. Originally it was sort of my own way of getting through the hardships of COVID we were facing here. And we were facing very strict lockdowns, and actually taking a motorcycle trip during this time was a big risk, and I had to push through some areas and sort of hide my face behind the mask of my motorcycle helmet to get through some areas that I didn't want to stir any trouble, because a foreigner during those days, it was a scary thing for some villagers to see me there. The kind of reader that I think would really enjoy this book, one, it's an adventure story. The bones of this book are my trip, this 2,500 kilometer trip. It's an adventure. I encountered some crazy stuff, some very dangerous roads, but it's more of a personal story, and for those who are interested in what the real China is like, I mean, it's so easy to have an outside perspective that has nothing to do with the actual people who live here. And China had always been a rural society, really up until 15, 20 years ago. I think it switched from being majority rural to now majority urban. And this transition has really transformed the country. I've been incredibly fortunate to witness all of it for the last almost 30 years now. 1998 was the first trip I took out here while I was a student at CU Boulder. I grew up in Denver, so my whole life had been in Colorado, and I made this transition to China starting in 1998, but fully in 2001. I think it's a story that people can really touch closely is in terms of how we run our business and how maybe other businesses should consider thinking about running their own. Taking a very human approach to things and never undervaluing the camaraderie and the friendship that can come from working together. It doesn't have to be a boss and a worker scenario. We are really building this place together. So I think there's something to be gained from this perspective of rural China for those of us who grew up in the US or anywhere else in a more modern world, and how swiftly things can change. What I hope readers walk away with after reading this book is, most importantly, a perspective of China that people are people everywhere. Nothing drives me more crazy than hearing expats living in China talking about Chinese are this way, or Chinese talking about Americans are this way. The diversity among independent groups is much greater than it is between groups around the world. After living abroad for more than half my life now. That is something I really hope people walk away with, but also that running a business doesn't have to be so black and white. People used to tell us you can't be friends with our staff, and that is something we never listened to. After 21 years running this place, we have taken staff trips together twice to Thailand, once to Nepal, to different places all over China. We've had the fortunate opportunity to have adventures outside of work together, and that has made our business stronger, I believe more profitable as well. A couple books I've recently really loved. Ooh, that's a tough question to answer, because right now I'm listening to a book called Renaissance, spelled the same with AI capitalized in the middle, trying to learn a little bit about this AI revolution, because it's so easy to also get it in a black and white way without this nuance. I find the book fascinating. It's really talking about all the benefits that we could gain from this, the cautions we need to have as we move forward, but that it's not some sci-fi pick we're in the middle of right now where it's time to build a cabin in the woods. I don't think we're quite there yet. There's a book about mushrooms. The title is Entangled Life. Oh man, that book is, I've read it twice now. For those of you interested in science and natural science, that one is mind-blowing. So those are two I would really recommend. Anything else to know about this book? I mean, I know how some of you authors out there know that selling books is already a challenge, but the most helpful thing anyone can do is leaving reviews. I hope I will be back in Denver for June and July, while the Boulder bookstore will be stocking The Galaxy's Last Ride. I hope I'll see some of you around there, but if you read the book, an honest review is helpful in so many ways, so I'd really appreciate it. I'd like to read you a short passage from the book, a very short one, and I'm just choosing this on the fly right now because Pindi is standing in front of me, and she is one of the only two employees we've had who came with us when we first started in Dali. She's one of our first employees, and she happens to be here right now, so I just wanted her to say hi. But she's given me so much perspective on what rural life was really like back then. So I'm just going to read you a very short piece here. Okay. Pindi's earliest memory takes her back to age 7 in Bangdong, a village perched high above the Lancang River among terraced tea plantations and fertile farmlands. She and her sister lived in a wooden house along a dirt path, their days filled with the sounds of roosters, barking dogs, and the occasional tractor. Back then, reaching Bangdong meant an 8-hour bone-rattling tractor ride from the nearest city, a journey so brutal that few villagers ever attempted it. When someone did return from the outside world, the entire village would gather, hungry for news and treasures from beyond the mountains. That's how 7-year-old Pindi found herself staring at 2 gleaming red apples. For her, it was the first time that she'd ever seen an apple in person, and the fruit's presence brought a jovial atmosphere to the household. The apples were intended for the elder women of the family, who giddily peeled and cut them up to share. Later, they let Pindi and the other children have a taste of the leftover apple skin. For Pindi, it was a big deal, and 30 years later, she still talks about it as if it was one of the most amazing things she'd ever eaten. So for me, when she started telling me that story, I mean, I feel like I know rural China quite well, and the transitions that I've witnessed over the last 28 years being here. But I mean, the idea of your fondest memory at 7 years old being the opportunity to chew on some apple skin really shows how privileged we've all been to grow up in a world that we have. And there is a sadness, but also an incredible hopefulness that these people who have been sort of isolated for so long now have the opportunity to join a modern world together with everyone else. And with that, I will say bye from Kunming. I am looking forward to getting to Denver and Boulder in a couple weeks. I hope you all will give the Galaxy's Last Ride a try, and hope to bump into you along the road. Cheers, everyone.